see if it'll break.
Okay, my name is Jess Fritsch, and today I'm going to talk to you about electrogravitics. Electrogravitics is the control of gravity, and I want everyone to understand right now, forget the word anti. Get rid of it, get it out of your vocabulary, because it is wrong. Anti means reverse, canceling out, opposite. This is not what this technology is doing. It is the control of gravity. And essentially, later on, I'm going to show you some slides that demonstrates how it works and how it controls gravity. And I'd like to start out with a quote from an individual who did like a book report on a particular book, this one right here, that is entitled Electrogravitic Systems, Reports on a New Propulsion Mythology. And later on, if you come out to my dealer's table in the dealer's room, I can give you the address of where you can get this book. It's about $15. And it was a quote by Leslie Kuba, and it goes like this: an underlying theme is that T.T. Brown's propulsion, once developed, will usher in an age of flight so revolutionary it will make all previous aviation from the Wright brothers to the space shuttles constitute the Stone Age of flight. And that's exactly what this is. Later on, about 1994, I think it was, 1994, October issue of Popular Science, that you might be able to get through them from back issues, or maybe some of you have gotten it. It was a report they did on the Lockheed Skunk Works. Ben Rich, who was the former director, he was the second director of the Skunk Works, who is now deceased, was asked a question: does the United States still have major secret defense technologies? And his answer was, we have some new things. We are not stagnating. What we are doing is updating ourselves without advertising. There are some new programs, and there are certain things, some of them 20 to 30 years old, that are still breakthroughs and appropriately to keep quiet about. Other people don't have them yet. That was his response. In the mid-1980s, we found a little device. Let me, here, go the wrong way. A report called Electrogravitic Systems, an examination of electrostatic motion, dynamic contrabary, and barocentric control. It was put out in 1956, and at that time was talking about the different companies and universities working on the technology. And this is going on from that. In my workshop tomorrow, I will get a little bit into more detail of Thomas Brown's history, of his research and how he came about to come with this. So I don't have too much time today, and I want to try to get through it quite a bit here. Just to show you, this is where this document was found. This is Wright-Patterson Technical Air Force Base, Technical Library, which we all know is the home of Project Blue Book. It's where we took the people over for the Bosnian peace talks. Very interesting, isn't it? This is where everyone's heard of Hangar 18, but it actually is known as Building 18A. It's located at this base. This is a drawing of Brown's earliest experiment. What he was doing was create a keyhole and suspend two discs on it. Essentially, it's just to suspend them in the air so that they are loose and there won't be any drag or anything. And then to run the power down to it. By charging the forward edge positive and the rest of the craft negative, the craft moves. And it was about 50,000 volts of power, DC direct current, at 50 watts. They moved around the circle at 12 miles per hour. This was his first experiment. And essentially how this technology works, it's a capacitor. You have a negative plate and a positive plate. with a dielectric material in between. Now, a lot of capacitors can use just air as a dielectric. It's not as good. So the idea of what his experiments were to find out what would be the best dielectric material. We now think that they are using spent, crushed uranium. And it has extremely high K value, is what is important in it. Extremely high. The higher the K value, the better it is, the more electricity charge it can hold in this capacitor. So the whole craft is nothing but a huge capacitor. And one of the best ways for you to examine it, if everyone looks in their car, you have a coil as part of your ignition system. These coils are rated at 50,000 volts DC, direct current. And if you get these things charged up real good, sometimes at night you'll see them, they kind of have a little bit of a glow. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing a field around that is created. So what happens is when you build this charge up here, you move towards the positive in that direction. This is a drawing showing the disk laid out here. And what we're doing, a few years back they announced that they were going to do a little experiment. They had 3 probes out. We had the Galileo probe and a couple others that had been sent out, and they were going to watch the signals that were being sent back from them to see if there was a little ripple in it. And what they were looking for was a naturally forming gravity wave. And it's believed that stars throw off these gravity waves and they appear naturally out there. So when the wave comes through, it will affect the signal that is sent back from the craft. And by having these probes at different points, they can check and time it as it goes past. Well, that was said, and then nothing else was said about it. We don't know if they really detected it or not. But what this technology does is when you charge the craft, the forward area positive and the back negative, the positive creates a gravity well. The negative creates a hill. So the craft is actually riding a gravity wave. And in the best terminology you can think about it is a surfer on a surfboard riding a wave out here on the beach. And it takes it in any direction it wants to, the positive. This is a little bit of an idea of what Brown's early thought was in building a craft and how you do it. And here you have like a disc, and you have a forward area that is charged positive. Just this out piece right here. And inside, what he's got is, in a sense, is a jet generator, electric jet generator. Inside, back area here, where you have the exhaust come out, is a needle probe in here, and that is charged negative, so that you are creating negative ions that are being pushed out in the exhaust. When that happens, it builds up this gravity field around it. The other experiment that he had to come up with is, can this thing lift? We have to be able to lift off and carry more than its own weight. So the experiment he built up was this, having weights here and up. You have your top area positive, your bottom negative. And through his experiments he was able to do, this is a dielectric material in between here. So there you have your capacitor. He was able to get it to lift 110% of its weight. This is back in the late 1950s. Now, the document that I showed you, and I do have these available, talks about it. They were hoping for a Mach 3 attack disc craft. What they have is a Mach 64 at cruising speed. It's not its top speed. At Mach 64, you're talking 15 miles per second, or about 54,000 miles per hour. And I will have some footage I'm going to show you. It was taken in 1991 from the space shuttle. Looking down on the Earth, they were showing the outside for some lightning effects and so forth going on in the upper atmosphere. They were over Burma and that area north of Australia. This is where they take these things out to fly them around, because there's not that many people out there. It's a very lightly populated area. And we'll show you all kinds of stuff flying around. There's at least half a dozen or more of these craft zipping around. Ever since that video got out, it was beamed live to the Earth that night. Now all outside video is time-delayed scrambled from the space shuttle. Okay. And this is what we feel is what the craft looks like. This is the finished product of that. And I just got a hold of a photo out there. I don't have it made up into a slide yet, so I'm going to be hoping to get a better picture of it. Gentleman, I don't know what his name is yet, was taking a picture of one of the stealth fighters over in Japan. This is very interesting. And unbeknownst to him, down here, it's a bit blurry because they were focusing on this up here, not this. It's one of these discs sitting out there in plain view. If anyone wants to, they come out to the table out there. I've got a little magnifying glass to look at it closer. It is out of focus, but it's quite interesting. So what we have is this continuation. Now, Richard Hoagland's group did a thing on this first video, and we're able to decipher how far away from the shuttle the craft was, this sort of thing, by the fact that it's going along the edge of the Earth, the very edge of the Earth and that. And they were able to tell that it was 1,713 natural miles away from the shuttle. And when you know that, you know the shuttle's altitude, you can do your simple geometry, and you can actually figure out its velocity. It's moving along just nonchalantly at 54,000 miles per hour. There's a flash, and it pulls a right-angle turn, and in about 2 to 3 seconds, it was up to 430,000 miles per hour. And this is real, and I do not believe it's its top speed. We also had another gentleman in the 1994 issue of MUFON International Symposium Proceedings that did also work on it. They used a software program that they could go through and track all of the objects on the video and go from that, and he came with about 5 different proofs that it was not what the government said. They were trying to say that it was urine dump from a previous shuttle flight, orbit. So it was ice particles floating around out there. Well, and then they tried to say that the flash was a thruster burn on the shuttle. No, because you can actually see the stars coming down in the video, and they're not moving. They're still continuing their motion down. If you had a thruster burn to change your attitude, those would change in position on the screen, and they did not. Yes? There is no G-forces in there. You're in a gravity field. They feel absolutely nothing. I will give you a real good example. You're sitting in the Earth right now. Okay, the Earth is rotating on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour. It's moving in orbit around the Sun at 1,000 miles per hour. Do you feel it? That's exactly that is there. It's the same thing. You have to go back. You have to remember in the early days before they just started having powered rail, the old steam locomotives, they would go along at 12 miles per hour. They thought that people couldn't handle it. It would be just too much for them. Okay, you come up to more modern times when we were getting ready for our Mercury flights and that. They thought that these astronauts were just going to be pushed into their seats so much that they might black out. They didn't know, so they built the seat in the Mercury, the capsules, to fit each astronaut. They were molded to them because of that. Well, they really showed it good later on in the Apollo, where they would put a camera in the capsule during launch and show the astronauts. You know, they're just, it's fine, no problem. There's only a momentary thrust feeling for those guys when they take off, of which I did. I have 400 hours on the Space Shuttle simulator. In '71, I worked under Deke Slayton. But it's so misconcepted that everyone thinks that they're going to be forced into it. You have no feeling. When you really get into understanding gravity itself, and I'm telling everybody, gravity is the key. We can make these jumps across the galaxy. The Aurora is not this. The Aurora, I want everyone to understand, the Aurora is an advanced version of the SR-71. It is a ramjet. And ramjet engines are older than jet engines. And the Aurora is the SR-75. And it's slow compared to this thing. It's a reactionary jet engine type thing. The Rams, they had to get up to 300 miles per hour before they could kick them in. You have any other questions? Yeah.
How much interaction do you think Townsend Brown might have had with the future of follow community projects?
No, he got up to a certain point of proving the technology. Now, I do have a little footage that I'll show you that's rare of Brown from 1958 to 1960. It's color silent because it was done on Super Millimeter 8 home movie film. And doing a lot of the experiments that he did at that time. He had a lot of problems because one of the things he had to show, a lot of the critics were saying, well, it was creating an ion wind off the back of it. So it's in a sense the same as a wing, air flowing over a wing, you have your lift. So what he did is he put it in a vacuum chamber. And when they put it in the vacuum chamber, it works better. Yeah, he went over to France. That's where he did this work to prove it. Was in France because he could get over there and use their vacuum chambers and that, and away from this area to be able to actually prove it. And I'll talk more about that tomorrow. One of the things I said on there is in the brochure and that, I do want to say this, I'm not with Southern California MUFON. I'm Northern California. That's a boo-boo in the typo in that. Gravity and heat interaction in that is a very big thing on it. The person that, one of the pamphlets I have actually worked out mathematically to prove that gravity really doesn't produce any heat. And this is critical, and it's critical in one area, the B-2 stealth bomber. The B-2 stealth bomber is actually, it's known as the B-2 stealth advanced technology bomber. Because Northrop in the 1960s was the leading corporation doing experiments on electrifying the leading edge of a wing. Very, very critical in this technology. And I was just talking with a gentleman earlier today who works on building the B-2s out at Edwards, working on that, the electrical systems. He thought he knew everything. I don't know if he's in here. Is he in here? I don't see him. He only had a secret security clearance. That's level 1. When I was with NASA, I had a 16th level, which is above the President of the United States. You have to understand, the President's only on a need-to-know basis. They don't want him knowing everything. He's too vulnerable out in the public. But mathematically, it doesn't produce any heat. It cancels out. And it's very critical with your heat-seeking missiles or infrared detection on any aircraft and that, to find it. Yes?
At those speeds, do you think there's already been some jumps to the moon?
Oh, it's very possible. This thing could go out to the moon in 15 minutes. It could go to Mars, when Mars is at our closest approach, in 3 days. Yes? Wait a minute.
Where did how do you get hold of the Brown papers? And secondly, how would you steer a craft like that?
Well, you mean the B-2 or that? This one? By simply changing, what I have, and I'll show you tomorrow on, is real good in that. You just have your disc separated in plates. In a sense, like 4 pie cuts. If you take the pie and cut it, so there's 4 pieces, 4 on top, 4 on the bottom. Your 2 forward is positive, back is negative. You're going this way. If you want to go that way, you just change your polarity. It's instantaneous. Yeah, let me go to this gentleman over here.
What was, any estimated top speed in the outer space, how fast you can go?
We've only seen it clocked at 430,000, and as I said, I don't think it's its top speed. I feel this craft has light speed capability. It's 186,000 miles per second.
That looks too large to fit in the shuttle bay.
It's not launched in the shuttle bay, sir.
Oh.
This is a separate craft. It's 35 feet in diameter.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't need a shuttle.
gonna go right up through the atmosphere.
It takes off and flies.
Mhm.
It's not like that. I don't know if anyone's been following the recent Yankee Clipper flights. They're testing over here in New Mexico. The Yankee Clipper is a rocket that can take off, hover, can move over and land. It can go up into, what they want to do is to replace the shuttle with it. It can go up into orbit, then come back down and land. And turn around, be able to turn it around and launch it within an hour. That kind of idea. They're wasting their time. And as I've told people, you ever notice everything that they release, like the B-2s have been released, and you know about them now? That's because they've got 30 years ahead. They're 30 years behind on that in technology. That's way ahead of that. Yes, Ben.
Is this technology an expansion of Brown's work, or were they just...
Yes, this is where it comes from. Brown is the one who started it. Once he was able to convince the Air Force, convince the government that it was real, and that was the major thing. He had to convince them, because he had a lot of critics saying, ion winds going off, it's not really doing anything, you know, this kind of thing. So they have to prove that. In 1958, they had a big conference. That's when they proved it to them. And at that time, it was removed from the public domain, totally into the black budget, and you never heard about it again until now. Yes, everything is developed military like that. I have no idea. I think if you understand our government and anything like that that's going on out there at Area 51, which is Groom Lake, it's military. And that's the only way they're going to get it into the black budget. When we say black budget, they go into Congress, they just have a list of figures. That's it. Nothing at all of what it's for. Congress is so programmed, they just rubber stamp it, okay. And there's estimated out at Area 51, they're spending probably around $3 to $4 billion a year. Okay.
Are there any negative side effects to the atmosphere?
I don't think so. No, it's when it's in the atmosphere, the fields around it takes a bit of the atmosphere with it, and that's why there's no sonic booms.
Is there any kind of discharge in the
No. Oh, you'll see it glow. It'll glow up like you wouldn't believe. About 3 years ago, I saw one fly over the San Francisco Bay Area from east to the west. And you have to be very knowing what to look for. I had a pair of binoculars look through it, and it was definitely disc. Now, if it's a satellite, even through a pair of binoculars, it's going to look like a little dot of light going over, because it's satellite's a lot higher up than what this was. And it's the fact it's going from east to west. All satellites that you'll see will be going from west to east, or from southwest to northeast in that directions, because of how they're launched. You know, where, like from Cape Kennedy, they launch out and to the east. Even from Vandenberg. Now, Vandenberg we use for launching for polar, and that means they still are going to the east, but they're going northeast, that way, so that they can come back out around. So if you see it going the other way, you've got something strange. Yes?
Are you familiar with any other kinds of propulsion systems on other disks, wherever they may be from? Could you share with us?
What, do you mean from extraterrestrial?
Possibly
Absolutely not. Because all in that area is all speculation. You have to understand that. We have had one individual come out, and it's still a big question mark on him, because we don't know if he's telling the truth or if he was been set up. Yes, there is. You have to understand that there is a major problem. The U.S. government uses people to feed both true and false information to the point where you can't tell what is real and what isn't. One of the cases is, and I had a friend who was strongly believing in it, we had a stories going around about the white aliens. We had the grays and we had the whites. The whites supposedly were terrible. They were eating humans and that, eating their parts. This whole story of the whites was created by one U.S. Air Force counterintelligence team in Arizona to scare one person. And that one poor person is now in a mental institution because of all this. Yes. So you've got to be careful know your sources of where this information is coming from. Don't just accept everything you hear. Even to me, research it, get the material I have, find out from other areas. There's a lot of stuff I'm finding on the internet. How many people are accessing the internet in this group? Good. Few. Look on them in that. There are sources. I'll give you an address, and I can, at home, I've got internet addresses I can send to you where you can look in this. But you have to understand, too, that I found there's a whole group out here. They all think it hasn't been developed. That's what I'm saying in this book review here. If it's developed, they don't believe it has. And I'm saying today that it has been developed. Incredibly, fully developed. And I'm now coming forward and actually giving my full name. Last November I talked at UFO Expo West up in San Francisco, and I only used my first name. This is the first time I'm using my full name. And I'll be with you 1 second, sir. Hold on. My whole goal is to get the government to declassify this technology. There's so much more we can use for this. Why should we waste our time with reactionary rockets? They're worthless. They're obsolete. Get rid of them. Let's go in and really start exploring our star system. Plus, could you imagine, say you needed medical assistance halfway around the world. Look how long it takes to get it there now. With this craft, we could get it there in a few minutes. That's how fast, and right to the site. Let me get that here.
Do you know what they're using to provide the power for these?
They're using for power? There's been, what they're using to power for on it, there's a belief that they were using diesel generators inside. I don't know. It's still a question. That was one idea. I could see some problems with that, flying in space and that. There's been a lot of talk about fuel cells. I don't really know how far advanced they are on it, if they really have a better source or not. You have to understand, a lot of stuff that we're seeing out now and hearing about, again, is like 30 years old.
Yeah, well, the Germans even